We had our MT-09 for 2 months now, and it's time for the 4,000 mile service. It's amazing how quick time goes when you have a new bike and you ride it every day, and we have enjoyed every minute of this bike, but now it's time to do the maintenance. Now today, believe it or not, we're ready for the 4,000 mile service on the MT-09. It's a crappy rainy day. We're not even going to miss a riding day by doing it today. But I want to take care of a lot of little things on the MT-09, the biggest one of which is going to be an oil and filter change. Now, the first oil filter and change come at $600. This one comes at $4,000 if you go by the manual, which means each one is get incrementally longer. So the next one will be at $8,000. So it's important now, right now, that I get this exactly the way I want it. I've had 4,000 really fun miles with it. I want to go around, check all the screws and bolts and things. I've made a few modifications with it, and I'm so happy with the bike. I don't want to compromise any part of it. Now, one of the reasons is I basically don't flip bikes. I don't trade them in and get new ones and whatnot. I usually keep them. So what happens is, if I don't do the maintenance, the lack of maintenance catches up to me, and I sure don't want it to happen to any bike, least of all the MT-09. I want to do the maintenance. I've done the maintenance on this guy for 11 years, exactly what the manual calls for, using Yamaha lube and real Yamaha filters and whatever, and replacing the chain before it broke, replacing tires before they have the last 1,000 miles of tread left on them. But here's the whole thing in a nutshell. This is the passion that I have for motorcycles, and having them in tip-top shape is part of what I enjoy the most about motorcycling. I don't enjoy riding around on dirty bikes, rusty bikes, bikes that need maintenance, bikes that need tires, chains, oil changes. I like to have everything up to snuff. So today I'm going to dedicate this rainy day to getting the MT-09 ready for the next 4,000 miles. Now, because we're going to do an oil change today, this is one of the things I always do. I have one of these rubber back rugs, and because I don't want to get, and I can be a little sloppy about oil changing, to be honest. I think everybody is to a certain degree. And if you're not, hey, even better. Or if you have one of those NASCAR floors with the black and white checkerboards, great. But having that, in case I drip some oil during the oil change, but that's not the first thing I want to do. I want to do this in a logical sequence. Other things have to be done before the oil change. So I'm trying to do this in logical sequence, and let me explain why. Once I change the oil, the engine will be hot. I want to clean the exhaust pipes. They're due for a little polishing, and since I've spent a lot of time on the original polish, keeping them nice and shiny is really important to me. I also want to, the chain has been incredibly good. I've only had to adjust it a few times and very, very little. So I want to spend some time cleaning the chain and getting it lubed and make sure I'm not letting any of this maintenance go. Then the last thing is, I hope by then it's not raining outside, but if it is, I'll have to put a fan in here. Then the last thing is I'll let the motor warm up, dump the oil, and put a new oil and filter in it. Now, this bike has never had anything on it except whatever grease came from the factory and chain lube. And the chain has stayed amazingly, amazingly stable. I'm always amazed when a chain doesn't need, well, because some of the chains I've had, and I've gone over them already, they, after 10,000 miles, they start getting funky and having soft spots and stuff. This chain so far has been real good, but we want to keep it good. Now, I know an awful lot of people let chain maintenance go or think it's not important, but this is ordinary diesel fuel. Nothing special, an old microfiber that will be thrown away at some point in time. And I just want to clean off, before I even lube it, I want to clean off any grit, any dirt. Usually there's some residual chain lube on the side of the muffler or down the bottom of the swing arm here. And since we want to keep it clean, before I do anything, I want to get, and I'll do the outside first, then the inside I usually do as a separate thing this way, but I want to get the chain clean. Now, it's not for appearance. It's what happens when you lube a chain. What happens? The dirt and the residual grit that's on it becomes grinding compound. Well, if there's less grinding compound, you think maybe the chain will last a little longer, or if nothing else, it'll last as long as it's supposed to last. Anyway, once I get this done now, I want to put a little more diesel fuel on this. It's amazing to me how many, when I go to anywhere where they're showing bikes and I look at some of the chains, they're rusty, not maintained, and it doesn't take that much work to do it. And now, I used to, at one point in time, spray the chain with the diesel fuel. It just got too sloppy. This way is just as good, I think just as good. And it allows you to get all of the stuff off that normally would contaminate it. And if I do this once every couple thousand miles, and I've done it a couple times already, because I don't want this chain has been lasting so well, I want to make sure it's that way. And I just had an issue with the chain on the Ninja. Vlad's getting me another chain, but I'm sad to say that that chain, and that's a Regina chain, I don't think that chain lasts anything like the chains that come on new bikes. I don't know why, and I don't know if that's true, but it sure seems like it's true. Now, once this is done, then I'll get another microfiber and just dry it off. If I don't do that, what happens is then the chain is going to have little dots all over the back wheel as soon as I take the bike out on the open road again. But this is certainly a good investment in time and energy to get this done. All part of the 4,000 mile service. And again, I'm trying to do this stuff in sequence. Right now I would not want to have the engine here with the muffler red hot and just forget about it. This is, doing it in sequence seems to make sense, especially if it's a rainy day. So here's the final thing now, is to see how we're doing with our adjustment. It looks like the chain's wearing pretty consistently, as it should. I don't see any tight spots. I don't see any spots that it's really loose. So I think we're good to go on the chain. Now, right from day one, I've used chain wax on this. The only tip I can give is don't leave the chain wax out in a freezing cold garage. Once it gets below freezing, it just seems to be very, very inconsistent. Then it doesn't want to spray nice and clean. I don't know if it needs to be homogenized or shaken up or what, but it's just as easy for me. I keep it in the house, and having a chain that's not ready to it's ready to break when I'm 100 miles from home. It's an important part of it. Now on a new bike, I really want to keep it even nicer. So I have my quick wax Meguiar's. Now this is just something I'm doing a little overkill here for one reason. The last 2 or 3 times I rode the bike, the roads were wet, and one of the days it rained pretty well that I really had to really go around the whole bike. But having this little coat of wax on the back wheel, it just makes cleaning it up a little bit easier. And I don't have to do this obviously, every time you ride the bike, but once you get a nice coat of wax on everything, what happens, it's just easier to clean the bike. And what I like to do after a day of riding in the rain is just take compressed air and blow the water off. And that really works great. Now, Ray Straub told me a great trick that he uses, and I've used it, I've tried it, but it's easier for me to do it with the compressor here. He lives in Florida, and he takes his weed whacker and blows the stuff off. Ray, that I'm sure works great. And to be honest, I have tried it, and it does work great. But the one thing never to do after you're riding 2 or 3 days of rain, like we've just had a couple of rainy days, is just come home from a ride and let the water sit there and penetrate and get dots and little spots on the paint and on this. And I don't know about how this flat black is going to hold up over the years, but again, we're going to find out. Keeping it clean is always in your favor. Now, this is one of the things that a lot of people don't do. I tried to do, is I've got these parts polished, and after a couple of days of riding in the rain, or when I'm doing this maintenance, this 4,000 mile or 8,000 mile, I just want to go over my polished parts and get rid of any oxidation. In this case, usually right behind the front wheel, there'll always be some little stone chips or something you can polish out. And again, this is just, nothing special, mag and aluminum polish. And I'll spend 10-15 minutes here getting in hopefully every little nook and cranny. If I see any really deep scratches or deep things that need to be addressed, I always have the buffing wheel right out here. I can just run the wheel over it, but So far, yeah, there's one little scratch there. Looks like from a stone. Well, we'll take care of that too. That gets rid of some of the little residual stone chips, and if you keep after it, it's just very easy to keep it that way. And we made a dedicated video, and you might want to check it out. It's one of the previous videos in the MT09 series of polishing up the exhaust, and a separate one of polishing the wheels, the powder coating. I think they're both simple jobs pretty much anybody can do. You can do it by hand, you can do it by machine, but just be careful if you do anything powder coated with a machine. It's soft material, it's a little softer than paint is, and you can go right through, and it's usually pretty thin. Just a little warning. May save you from going through on a factory wheel. Anyway, exhaust is polished up. We've cleaned everything up. I've went around the bike and looked for any bolts. Anything looks like it's loose or anything. Everything looks pretty good. Time to warm up the engine and let it get the operating temperature and dump the oil. Now, because it's raining outside, I've got to do this as close to the door as possible. Try to keep from gassing myself in here. Luckily, we have plenty of fans, and I want to just let it bring it up to operating temperature. Okay, with our laser thermometer, we know we're up to operating temperature. Time to dump the oil. Now, I always start by cleaning out the oil pan with paper towels, because if there's any residual little sparkles in the oil or anything, I really can't do it today again because it's a rainy day, but I would want to know, Now, this oil has been in there. The first oil was only in 600 miles. This has been in there for basically 3,400 miles, so we really want to take a real close look at what comes out. Now, it's very convenient, the drain plug and the oil filter, very easy to get at. Extremely easy to get at. Now, nothing like some of the sport bikes where you have to take the sheetrock off the motorcycle to get at it. This is very convenient. And there we go, Texas Gold. Now, it's a proven fact. Nothing saves an engine and a motorcycle more, because of course, if you do the regular maintenance and do the oil changes they call for, and use the oil they call for, not the Pride of Poland oil or something. We use Yamaha lube. Now, a really good tip is right now, go have a cup of coffee or a sandwich or something, and let that last shot glass of oil drain down. Then what I want to do is stand the motorcycle up straight, rock it back and forth, and you notice another shot glass of oil usually comes out, because we're out leaning on the side stand right now. So getting that last little bit of oil out, I think, is important. Well, some people don't. But while I'm waiting too, I'm going to pull the oil filter off. I have the oil filter wrench. This job is relatively straightforward and easy to get to. And the standard oil filter wrench that you use for all these filters, same one works on the MT09. Now, here's a really good tip. If you take and tap on that oil filter remover and tap on the wrench, you give yourself a lot of leverage here. If you just try to slide it on, a lot of times it'll just slip right off, and it's a problem. And once you get it loose, you can really from that point get it off by hand, except the downside is those pipes are still red hot. So of course, super important with a clean paper towel to clean that around the washer. A lot of people think it's important to put a new washer in every time. Well, I'm lax about doing that, but I haven't had any leak. And you don't want, I can really give good information. Use the torque wrench and do it to torque specs. This is a problem. If you strip this, you got a big headache on your hands. Now, when I bought the bike, I got factory oil filters from Partzilla, And I wanted to make sure I mentioned this. That's not the where I... Oh, here's the oil filters up here. I have a box of all kind of aftermarket oil filters and all the things you need. But here's the thing. This is a unique number oil filter. The uniqueness is all the digits are the same, but it ends in a 61. I don't know if that's important. I'm not a Yamaha mechanic, but I'd be willing to bet there's something different about it. And in my case, I just spent, well, Karen spent a lot of money on buying this bike, and I want to maintain it. And oil filters are very, very cheap insurance, and real oil filters. Now, I wanted to show this. If I take the bike and stand it straight up and down, rock it back and forth a bit, almost always you can see a little bit of extra oil come out. Now I'll hold it straight up for a couple minutes, minute or so, and just let that oil, because the idea, and even replacing the oil filter, I know some people just dump it. You never really get the last little bit of oil out of the oil filter either. And when you pay big money for these bikes, and especially when you run them hard, I like to run them hard. I'm not going to ride around like it's a Vespa scooter or anything. So this is very, very cheap insurance. The money and the time you spend, you get a lot of enjoyment and at the other end of that equation. Now, the factory oil filters have this plastic cover that you have to carefully take off. They do have a coating of grease, some kind of grease on there, which I assume is so you don't have to put oil on it. Well, I'm going to put these in hand tight and then get my tool. Now, if you make this too tight, nothing really good happens. If you leave it too loose, nothing good happens. So it's really to your advantage. Okay, the oil filter drain plug is torqued down. The filter's torqued down. And we got to go put this in a gallon jug. Our town, we're very lucky. They recycle this. We have a place. We don't have to dump it out in a sewer or on the roof of the house or something. Then I go to the oil cabinet. I just want to mention, last time I bought Yamaha lube, it was cheaper to get it from Amazon than from any of the local dealers. And this is the oil that they recommend. They do not recommend chemical oil, but you know, when you spend the money for the motorcycle, you get to do whatever you want to do. I have had such good luck with this. 11 years with the R1, nothing ever is in there except Yamaha lube. Never had an issue with the clutch or anything, which you can have if you try to use non-motorcycle oil. Now, this is usually the part where most people get impatient. They want to just dump in 4 quarts of oil and walk away. Well, that's not a good thing to do. I like to put about 3/4 of the amount in this case about 2.5 quarts, and you can measure it off the side of the jug, assuming you're using this type of oil. I think most of the jugs have it. But the one thing you don't want to do is overfill the oil. So I'm going to put that amount in here, and then I want to carefully, because there'll be none in the oil filter at that point in time, I want to check the window and see if I'm close. And this part takes a little patience, because you want to get, and on a day you can ride, you want to go out and ride, but of course, but this is something you just have to be patient about. Now, the window is down the bottom. I want to tip the bike straight up and down and see if I'm even in the window yet. Now, having a light is real handy here, but I can see there'll be a point at which I can just start to see it. Well, I'm not there yet, so now I'll put about another 1/2 quart in, and I'll put it in little by little by little till I start to see that come up on the window. The one scenario, I don't want to put it in and go look and the window's full and there's nothing in the oil filter. That's the one scenario. Then I've got to redrain oil. So here we are after a lot of going back and forth. We're just a little lower than middle. I want to be in the middle, but we don't have anything in the oil filter yet. So now we'll put the drain plug back in the top, the little fill cap, and as I lay it back on the side stand, and once we run the engine, that oil is going to go into the oil filter. We'll let it run. It's filling up the oil filter right now. Let it sit for a minute. And we'll check it again. Now the trick is to see when a bike is standing straight up and down, and of course real nice if you have a helper here. Let's see how close we are. We've given it time for the oil to drain down. And now I see we're not even in the window. So the oil is now in the filter and circulating around the motor. We'll let this sit for another 5 minutes or so, a couple of minutes. I'll go have a cup of coffee, come back and we'll add just enough oil to bring that up to the middle of the window. That's a critical thing, to have that the bike is level, the oil has already been through the oil filter, and that you're not going up and adding an extra half a quart of oil. You might be thinking, well, boy, there must be an easier way than this. Yeah, there is a lot of ways you can do this. And to be honest, over the years I've tried taking and measuring the oil that came out on a milk jug and marking it, but you know what? In the end, this is the way I find the most convenient to do it. And it takes a little longer, but I know it's right. Now, it's also another thing too, is after you ride the bike a few times, it's a good idea, not a few times, I check the oil every time I ride the bike. That's number one. So I'm going to do this a little gradually because I do not want to overfill it. If I have to do this 3 or 4 times, it's a lot easier than draining oil. After back and forth, we now have what I will be very happy with. I'll get first ride I have on a bike, I'll check it again, make sure it didn't move at all. But the next thing is to test that we have the drain plug and the filter tight. We'll just run the bike with a clean towel. I have a clean towel underneath it. See if anything drips out. And if it does, obviously we're going to check it. All right, it's been running about 3 minutes and not a drop anywhere. I think it's safe to say we're in good shape here for our next ride. Also, some good useful information. If you overfill the engine, you run the risk of popping seals. I've heard that, but I'm not at the level of being a mechanic. I'm a backyard mechanic, and I just listen to what the manual says. And it says in big capital letters, do not overfill the oil. So I'm going to expect, maybe they know a little bit more than me, possibly. Anyway, this was a really good 4,000 mile maintenance. Next time we have to do similar maintenance will be, well, 8,000 according to the manual. And we're looking forward to a lot of good riding. Now, one of the things you can tell if you've overfilled the oil, if you go to put the bike in gear and it goes clonk, it sounds like you're hitting it with a sledgehammer. A lot of times it's because there's so much oil in the bike that the clutch plates don't release. You can try, just check that the oil is at the right level with the bike standing perfectly straight up on flat level ground and that you're right in the middle of the window. And I would say the only exception to that is if you have a bike that's burning a quart of oil per ride, I'd want to be in the top of the window to start the ride. But we're nowhere near that. In fact, what we're lucky about, because we've done good maintenance on all these bikes, none of them are really anything but reliable. So that's the 4,000 mile service. I've carefully logged it into my little logbook. I like to know what date I did it on, and needless to say, the mileage. I really think this bike is going to be just like all the other ones, that I'm going to be religious about the maintenance. And to be honest, as Ray Straub so correctly says, you'll never wear the bike out, you wear out first. Well, the oil changes help that too. Now, I know every one of these bikes is a unique entity, and I've recorded all of the maintenance on them. But the most important single number one thing you can do to keep a bike healthy is oil changes and filters. And the amount of money you spend for good quality oil and filters, when you're 100 miles from home and it's either freezing cold or really hot, you think about it, you know. Now, I want to thank the healthcare workers. Talking about staying healthy. Guys, my family so far has weathered the storm very well. We've sequestered most of the time. And I know you guys have gone to work and busted your buns to keep us healthy. Thank you so much. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're new to the channel, check out this like a little under 2,000 videos. By the time you see this, it'll probably be 2,000. And there's 1,000 model airplane videos, so it's probably 3,000 altogether. And if you have to do the maintenance, you'll never regret the time and money you spend doing the maintenance. And the further you get from home, the more you'll be glad you did the maintenance. I'm glad, because the next time I ride this bike, we're riding it, I'm enjoying that quick shifter, I'm enjoying all the features of the bike, and I don't want it to turn into a rust bucket, that's for sure. So again, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, I do enjoy making them, editing them, and going for all the rides. And thanks so much for watching. And we do try to post up a new video every day or so. We try to cover the things we do in the shop, maintenance we do, the rides we go on. And in this upcoming winter, we're going to have some very custom restoration stuff. Don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but if you enjoy the work that we do on this channel, I'm glad to share it with you. And I'm glad you're enjoying the adventure that we're having with these motorcycles, old, new, and in between. It's all good. It's all about the passion for motorcycling. And again, I hope you enjoyed the video. I do enjoy making them. I do enjoy editing them. And thank you so much for watching.